So Pete Hegseth is making Democrats even more desperate, and certain Republicans as well, because they are dependent upon the cash flow that comes from, we're supposed to say defense industry, but let's call it what it is. It's the war industry. Sometimes war is the answer. We need to have a robust, capable defense. We are to respect, and we should do it joyfully, the people who choose to serve with an eye towards one day you might have to go to combat. Any service is respectable, unless you're there to get wrong sex surgery and hormones, and that's your sole reason for going, or going to get college money. That's not as respectable. I mean, still respectable, but not the hormones and surgery thing. And that's been happening. So they're desperately trying to keep Pete Hegseth out because he is not apparently part of the war industry. One of the things they did early on was talk about this terrible tattoo that Pete Hegseth has on his arm. It's a cross, and it's so scary. In fact, it's the same cross as you see in this image that exists etched into the floor of the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. That's a picture of someone shining that cross. This is before the Jimmy Carter Memorial. That same cross was on the pamphlets handed out at the memorial. That same terrible white supremacist cross. So they're making themselves crazy. Pete Hegseth had many interactions. We're going to feature some of them. And as we do that, we'll make note of some of the theater of the bizarre connected with these people asking him questions. We'll talk about this in a second. Here's a theater of the bizarre moment. A woman gives birth, and here is the placenta and the umbilical cord. Okay, now you can consider those things gross if you like. I think they're miraculous. They come out of the mother, and here they are. In the United States of America, those things are largely put into containers of medical waste and burned. Whereas, when a baby is in the womb, that body is processed for stem cells. That's weird. In either case, the ethical gathering of stem cells from placentas and umbilical cords, or the unethical, immoral from aborted children, you do not get to use the live stem cells in your body. So this would be very much like trying to bake a cake with yeast that cannot rise. Yeast that's been exposed to the air for too long, so it's dead. It's not going to rise. It would be like eating yogurt with no active probiotics in it. They're dead. In the United States, they effectively kill these stem cells. So why does it matter? Because if you're facing a very serious surgery and you'd rather not have one, you could probably, in many cases, you can head that off by going to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for about 5 days at a beautiful resort that is 5 minutes, a 5-minute walk, if that, from Renew.Healthcare. So instead of surgery, you sit down or lay down, depending on the process you're having done, and they inject you in about 10 minutes. I've had it done twice. I'm going back for a third, for a different body part. Those stem cells destroy inflammation, and then they rebuild muscle, tendon, cartilage. So even if it's not surgery you're facing, but it's constant pain, they can help you with this. It's illegal in America. And down there, it's Harvard-certified surgeons who actually take this process through to completion. Check them out at Renew.Healthcare. It's RENUE.Healthcare. Please tell them you're part of the Todd Herman Show family, and they will tell you whether they can help you or not. And they'll even tell you the percentage success chances. It's Renew.Healthcare. Let's look at the theater of bizarre here. You have a woman who faked being an Indian, lied about her ethnic heritage so that she could get a better position at Harvard, and so she could get ranked as some of the top female Indian law or lawyers in the country. A woman who says she's in it for the middle class and the poor, and she got rich by taking homes, buying homes that had been foreclosed upon, largely from people who couldn't make the payments, in other words, the middle class and the poor, and flipping those, and then putting them into big funds. A woman who has a teaching job but doesn't teach, but she takes the paycheck. You have Pocahontas talking with Pete Hegseth, and note, Democrats are unable to find women in power who are not shrill and annoying.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years? You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals?
Yeah, maybe Pete Hegseth should make that pledge. Let's talk about pledges. To uphold the Constitution of the United States and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Lizzie Warren. Let's talk about pledges. Your party backed a general who offered to commit treason. Still does. General Miley, General White Rage. He said, yeah, I'm happy to commit treason. If the civilian commander-in-chief orders an attack against the Chinese military, I'll warn him. Your party backs censorship, blocking of speech, the debanking of people for opinion. You took a pledge to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's a pretty serious pledge. I love the fact that Pete Hegseth in one line, though, was able to expose her for what she is. And the look on her face. By the way, there's an update on the cabinet process. Charlie Kirk points this out. So Kristi Noem, Doug Burgum, and Tulsi Gabbard have had their confirmation hearings postponed due to paperwork issues. The FBI says, we can't get it done. We just can't get it. They're blaming background checks. Does anyone believe that? I think it's a stall tactic. Everything they can to slow President Trump's roll. Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine is a guy who's part of a party that teaches kids, starting at the age of 5, to express themselves sexually, to thrill their flesh. Starting around the age of 7 or 8, their party sponsors curricula in the school that teaches kids to touch one another's genitals. Starting in 9th grade, they have curricula that teaches kids that it's very, very important that they have naked physical contact with friends. And if they're not ready for sexual intercourse, one of the things they can do to achieve that intimacy is to take hot baths naked with friends and embrace while they're in the tub. If they're not ready for sex at the age of in 9th grade, as preteens and teens. Later on, they teach them some very, very fascinating things like this. They have them go through the process of trying to talk a fellow classmate into having sex. Well, the fellow classmate is in the position of trying to say no, but the person doing the talking is an expert, saying, well, we can use contraception. There's no risk of pregnancy or STD. We'll use these. And wait, well, I don't have any. I don't have a prophylactic. Well, we can use non-microwavable plastic wrap, saran wrap. You can make a dental dam out of it. That's the moral standing of Tim Kaine, who's going to lecture Pete Hegseth on what is apparently his problem, Hegseth's, with sexual sin.
Still married to your second wife, correct? I believe so. And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime. That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared.
You're not shocked about anything. Hunter Biden. Unregistered foreign agent acting on behalf of Ukraine and China, given access to the secrets of the United States of America and access to the White House where he probably left cocaine. You're not shocked about anything, Tim Kaine. Does anyone buy that Tim Kaine is shocked by any of this?
Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? Senator, how is that a complete clear?
Who's he speaking to here? He's speaking to Republicans. He's speaking to Christians. If Hegseth did all this, it's disgusting. It's a sin problem. One sinner, Cain, looking at another sinner, Hegseth, And this is disqualifying in Washington, D.C., where we used to play the game wife, daughter, or girlfriend. That was a game we used to play with congressional members. 52-year-old man walks in with a 19-year-old woman. They got out of the same car together. It's 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m., and they're going to go have some cocktails, get their booze on. Is that his daughter, wife, girlfriend, staffer, all three? Because with Biden, of course, it could be all three. Does anyone really think Tim Kaine cares about adultery or fornication?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
it was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the
So Hegseth's doing the game I hate, where he's not answering the question. So I just want to be consistent. And he's doing a shifting game. He's talking about charges that were alleged that he forced a woman to have sex. If he did that, to me, that's disqualifying. But again, it's Washington, D.C. That's done all the time. So Tim Kaine, theater of the bizarre. His entire party pushes kids to engage in this activity from the day they walk into kindergarten. And he is going to say disqualifies Pete Hegseth in a town where affairs happen multiple times to multiple people, multiple times per week. That's the morality of Washington, D.C. Maggie Hirano, who has never really accomplished anything in the way of legislation, written bills, anything that matters. She's from Hawaii, so reflectively elected because there is this belief that the Democrat Party is all in favor of freedom for Hawaii. They don't care about freedom for anybody. Maggie Hirano got her shot at Pete Hegseth.
Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
Would you
events,
carry
holding
out
a
an
riot
order to
shield on
shoot
behalf of my
protesters
country.
in the legs?
I saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence, set the church on fire, and destroy
You know
a
what?
statue.
That sounds to me that you will
Chaos.
comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg. Moving on. President-elect has attacked.
Moving on. And Hegseth is doing the thing where he's not answering the question. That bugs me. But the answer to the question would be this, to me. Senator, since you're presenting a hypothetical, I will present reality. In a hypothetical sense, if the protesters were endangering law enforcement and were attacking them and trying to kill them, and the president gave that order, and it was going to save lives, yes, I would follow that order out. If it was going to save cops' lives. If that was actively going on, like it happened when I was in the National Guard units where protesters were beating cops and attacking cops and burning down churches, and you, Senator, didn't care. That reminds me of something. Hold on a second. Shooting protesters. What am I thinking of, Alex? Oh, that's right. You had Rosanna Boyland, who was probably beaten to death by cops. One had a metal pole, another a wood one. And then they said, she died of an overdose from drugs she'd been taking her entire life, prescription drugs, her entire adult life. But then there's Ashley Babbitt, a disgraced cop who at one point left his service weapon sitting around, a disgraced cop who changed the record of his shooting of Ashley Babbitt. He play acted after he shot her. And let's do it this way. After that black cop shot an unarmed white woman, he then made a call he knew would be recorded and then pretended he was under attack and then pretended he was going to have to draw his weapon after it had already happened. The Mockingbird media was absolutely thrilled when they had an opportunity to have Michael Bird on TV to, set the record straight. This is from the Today Show.
I was very afraid.
Are you afraid now? Going
I
forward?
am. I am afraid because I know there's people that disagree with my actions on January the 6th. But I hope they understand I did my job.
Did his job. If you watch the footage and you saw Ashley when she's going up the steps, one of the things that she was doing was trying to get the protesters to calm down. When she was in fear for her life being pressed up against the doors, because if you saw that, she was a smaller woman being pressed up against the doors. Her husband believes that's why she was trying to get through the window. You've got to, I'm going to get, the car's coming up. They don't know I'm pressed up against the doors. There's hundreds of people down here. Michael Byrd didn't say, police officer, freeze, step back. He didn't issue a warning. Shot her in the head. Maggie Hirano is probably one of those people who thinks that he deserves a medal, which he's effectively gotten. That sort of selective outrage doesn't work anymore, not for me. Senator Mullen did a far better job than I've seen any senator do in terms of attacking the utter hypocrisy of nearly every Democrat questioning Pete Hegseth.
Not going to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it, and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary of Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because a man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye.
Wow, he almost quoted the Bible. He referenced it. That's Mark Wayne Mullen from the state of Oklahoma. We need more speeches like that. We don't need the speech that we heard the other day. Was it Jasmine Crockett who threatened to take Nancy Mace outside for a beating, called her a child? But we need the Senate to stop this ridiculous, the fine gentleman from Virginia. He nailed what they're trying to do to Hegseth, and he did make that mention about the log in the eye, the plank in our own eye. We as conservatives need to understand something. We don't have any perfect people. We're not going to be rescued from Washington, D.C. Pete Hegseth can reform the Department of Defense and the Pentagon, and I believe he will. I believe he's in it for the service members. I believe he's in it because he loves the armed services. And he is not perfect. And we in our movement need to be willing to say things like, if Pete Hegseth did that to his wives, it's disgusting. And sometimes we all fall short, every single one of us, of the glory of God. We're not capable of reaching it. That's what the law showed. You want to earn salvation? Good luck. Here's the law. Can't do it, can you? That would be the only way to earn it, to be perfect. You can't. So we're going to send the perpetuation for a sin, Jesus Christ, which takes us back to the tattoo on Pete Hegseth's arm, the same one on the floor of the National Cathedral, about which Democrats have never complained.